Let me give you the full disclosure. We may or may not have ownership or other positions in the stocks mentioned on this show. Don't buy stocks based solely off of what you hear on this podcast. Always do your homework and research before buying and investing in stocks. I'm your host, Kong, along with my co-host, Keepson. And yeah, unfortunately, that just skips over our intros. So let's take a look at what's in the news. Bloomberg's Nabila Ahmed, oh no, before you get that, Volkswagen took a beating today, another one that is, when it turns out more of their vehicles also had emission cheating devices installed. 3-liter diesel versions of the 2014 VW Touareg, the 2015 Porsche Cayenne, and the 2016 Audi A6 Quattro, A7 Quattro, A8, A8L, and Q5s. So it's no longer specifically a VW car only thing, but also other brands under their control as well.
What's their stock ticker?
They have two actually, VLKAY and VLKPY.
VLKAY. All
So,
right, look at
so
that
the
dip.
A, yeah, the A is actually their Class A shares, and the other one is their non-voting shares.
I see. Oh, which KLVKY?
VLKAY and VLKPY.
Yeah, I was just curious. No, I'm just taking note of it because is that really it? Is it over the market group? Volkswagen can have a better representation on the stocks market. It's an ADR stock, which means it's a addressing stock, I think.
Yeah.
It's like it means it's just it doesn't really situate itself within the United States, but they do want representation in our stock markets. Yep, well, stocks tanked. Big surprise.
Yeah. Well.
I know.
All right. Moving along. El Nino is coming, and for any commodities traders, this will affect your investments. Generally, this means that East and Southeast Asia will experience a dry season, and the Americas will be hit with tons of rain. Hopefully, for California, they have measures in place to take advantage of this torrential downpour and to counteract their long drought. Now we get to Bloomberg's Nabila Ahmed, who talks about the 15 biggest banks that make moves in the markets and what happens when countries default, and goes into the banks' thought processes and what exactly they do. And then we've mentioned the issue of capital flight from China, but the Heritage Foundation of the American Enterprise Institute, a conservative think tank, has some data and an interactive map on where the country is investing their money. Surprisingly, there are specific parts of the world that don't receive any investment money. I mean, Somalia and Somaliland are dead giveaway reasons why everyone would avoid them, but then Iceland, Finland, Lithuania, and several other well-developed nations don't have any financial ties with the communist government.
No comment on this either.
Well, okay, how about this one? Roy Vagelos, former CEO of Merck, was forced to retire in 1984 when he went on to a new company, Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, only taking in 300,000 shares of stock at 50 cents per share. Since then, he's turned the company around, and it's made him a billionaire.
Very nice.
Yeah, wish I was that guy.
Yeah, did something. He did something right.
Yeah, well, Hewlett Packard is no longer a single company. They are now split into HP Inc., which will sell personal computers and printers and will continue trading under the symbol HPQ. And Hewlett Packard Enterprise will sell commercial computer systems, softwares, and tech services, trading under the symbol HPE. Any comments on the HP split?
Uh, find that awfully weird.
How so?
Hey, well, I don't know. Hewlett Packard's not exactly known for their software. And if anything, the Hewlett Packards that the software that's installed in Hewlett Packards are very bloaty. I mean, one of the first things I do is uninstall most of them. So I don't know why you would even want to split that. Perhaps they're thinking the software is dragging the computer sales down. Not only that, but let's say you have the computer. Do they come with HPE software, or do they still,
Well,
you
no,
know?
I mean that's all going to be under the software you're talking about is most likely going to be under HPQ for the most part because a lot of the software that HP owns isn't necessarily under the HP brand name, or it was acquired through other companies that they had purchased in the past. So, for instance, a lot of the services that they provide, um, one of them was through NEC. So NEC was like owned by Rossborough, and eventually it was sold to HP at some point. So this company had the contract for the Navy's NMCI network, which is like their non-classified internet network. And so when HP bought them, they basically inherited that system. So they have a lot of contracts with the government. So this is what HPE is going to be handling.
That sounds pretty cool. Actually, that seems possibly investment worthy right there.
Yeah, I mean, considering how when Meg Whitman first came on board, she actually wanted to stop selling personal computers, and that was a huge that was met with a lot of like protest because people were like, not sell computers or printers, what the heck, like, but I mean, apparently she supposedly did the numbers and they weren't working out for their advantage, I guess somehow. So maybe by splitting the two, maybe HPQ can bring in some new talent, maybe get it working again. I mean, when's the last time you actually bought a full-on personal computer?
That's a good question. But I'm a little bit on the tech savvy side. I kind of like to build things on my own. Kind of
Well,
like building your own hot rod.
yeah,
If you had
I
the
mean,
know-how, it's pretty darn cool.
yeah, I guess. See, so I mean, there's on the one hand people like you, and then on the other hand, people who don't know anything about computers. They're probably going to go buy a tablet instead because they're a lot easier to use.
That's blasphemy. I was thinking maybe they just go with a Dell, which has been known to be pretty decently priced. Decent hardware, decently priced. There's nothing too wrong with it. But I remember a time back when there was like Toshiba, there was like um uh Fujistar,
Fujitsu,
Fujitsu, NEC, I think even Pac Bell had some representation.
yeah.
And then Dell, the up and comer Dell, and there's all these different brands, IBM, and I think it's just kind of been constantly dwindling down. And I guess like Samsung's kind of making its appearance in a way because it's the tablets and people are almost considering tablets like computers, which they kind of are. It's like a blend between it, but I don't think there's a true replacement for laptops just yet. I think there's definitely still a space for laptops.
Well, there's still that space, but at the same time, it's still narrowing. I mean, tablets are coming on board. They're a lot easier to use. You're losing away a lot of that market that would have traditionally bought a laptop or a computer of some sort.
Yeah, I think, what would be interesting is I would like to look at the profit margins and operating margins of HPQ and that of Dell or any other type of competitor. I think Lenovo is out there now. They're
But I
known
mean,
to be
that
trying to
just goes
reach
to show you
Acer.
how much trouble this market is having right now. I mean, Dell had to take themselves off the public market so that they could try to do something new or at least preserve a lot of that money so they wouldn't have to worry about giving it away to uh, some of the investors or whoever. And like Meg Whitman said, she wanted to just get rid of that whole entire business sector. And on top of that, like what you just mentioned again, before there was Toshiba and all these other companies. Where are they now? Gone. They're gone.
I didn't even realize that NEC got acquired by Hewlett Packard until you just told me right now. I'm just curious about the operating margins and whatnot because, HP is exiting, but there's all these companies coming in to the market. Makes me wonder, like, what's going on? Is it because you guys have so much pre-existing like baggage that prevents you from actually operating in a profitable manner, or perhaps the industry was never profitable, everyone just constantly loses money for some reason or another. But I think if we review the annual reports for all these companies and look at operating margins and how much they make on assets and investments, we can take a look at basically how much you stand to make per dollar you spend.
You
And
probably
this,
don't stand to make a whole lot. That's exactly why whenever you buy a computer nowadays, it's loaded with a lot of bloatware. Unless like you do like what you're talking about, build your own system, then there's no bloatware at all,
I
right?
imagine like
But
profit's still profit though.
no, but I
If
mean the
the
reason why there's a lot of bloatware is because it's basically advertisement for these companies. They're advertising other people's companies. They're making deals with them. So basically, every time they sell a computer, it ships off, and then you're basically they're basically getting some of their costs subsidized because they're basically advertising for some other company and their software or whatever.
It makes sense. I think in order to entertain whether or not this HPQ like splitting is actually a good move or bad move, I probably want to look at the annual reports and do a numbers comparison on a fundamental basis. Like for example, they split. What does that mean? Does that mean HPQ like prices go up in the future? Does it go down in the future? Well, how do we determine that? Well, is it better for the company or worse for the company? And then there is indeed a way for us to determine that aspect at least. Is to take a look at the operating margins and see if, and just take a look at the metrics and see how this company compares to its peers in the same industry, and then we can get an idea. And it would be shocking, to me that to think that perhaps a lot of these companies are exit because they're not making enough money. I mean, Apple also sells like laptops and computers, and they're making money hand over fist. So it leads me to conclude that there has to be a lot of profit margins still left in the space, but perhaps they're just not doing the best they can to compete against the existing players, which is even more concerning because that's like admitting defeat. They're like, well, we suck so hard that we're gonna just sever a limb off and then let it die. The question is like, which division is that? And it leads me to conclude that perhaps it's not likely the software division because of the Navy contracts and whatnot. Then perhaps it might be the computer division, which if that's really the case, then it's definitely not a company you want to buy or anything. Perhaps a company you might want to entertain shorting, but until you have more information, then it's not a wise move to make.
Yeah, well, we'll see. All right. Oh, moving along. Next topic. So the city of San Francisco is getting ready to vote on a measure called Proposition F, which seeks to regulate businesses like Airbnb and whether or not people can rent out their space for a price. Some of the conditions include restricting all private rentals to 75 nights per year. Hotel taxes must be paid by the hosts, and the proposition will require that guests and revenue reports be provided from rental hosts and hosting platforms like Airbnb and HomeAway every 3 months.
All right. Well, don't know. It makes sense. I mean, in a way, we kind of all see this coming, right? Airbnb stands to compete directly with hotels and motels, which have to pay these fees already. So
Yeah.
if you're going to operate in the same space in the same manner, then perhaps, this is long overdue. Of course, whether or not this is going to pass, I don't know. If people have a say in it, chances are only the hotel is going to vote no, and everyone else is going to vote yes. And I think this is a kind of a foreshadowing to what's going to happen with Uber and Lyft and all these other taxi-like services.
Oh yeah,
You know.
definitely.
hmm
Yeah, and I mean, especially considering how California is usually at the forefront of any sort of cultural movement and any other issue. I mean, any laws that are passed in California eventually spread their way around to the rest of the country in some way, shape, or form. And I think this is going to have wide impacts for the rest of the country and even internationally, if you think about it. I mean, because Airbnb is an international company. So,
Yeah, but I don't know. It's possible. I mean, everyone's going to look at it and
yeah,
when
well, I mean,
until they see an example.
in what Santa Monica, they've pretty much banned Airbnb,
Really?
as far as I
I
know.
didn't know that. I will have to look into this.
I mean, I
But
could be wrong, but if they haven't like outright banned it, I know there's like tons of restrictions.
really
Yeah.
interesting. But does Airbnb still support the city of like Santa Monica? Like, is there any disclaimers in Airbnb says this city's not supported, or when you try to list there, Airbnb just bans it altogether? And if they don't ban it altogether, do they Airbnb take responsibility for any type of legal like litigation you get into as a result of using Airbnb?
Well, let me see. Let me double check here. So Santa Monica. and Airbnb. Yeah, here we go. Well, not a full-out ban, but cracks down on Airbnb, bans vacation rentals under a month. Ah, okay.
What? Under a month?
Yeah, so in other words, like you have to rent out to someone for like a long time for it to be considered like an actual rental. So then in that case, when that happens, you have to pay full rent because right now, as it stands, in a year, if you rent out your your place or room for I think it's like 15 days or less in a year, then that
Hmm.
means you don't have to report it to the IRS or to the California what is it called franchise tax board. But beyond that, then uh, the, there are tax implications. So by making it 30 days, it's excessive, but that ensures that you will have to pay taxes on it.
Interesting. I was thinking, what if does this is it just to Santa Monica or is this all Los Angeles County?
No, no, just Santa Monica.
I see. Well, good thing. I don't think I quite qualify to be under Santa Monica's legislation right now, but um,
Here's your chance to make some money.
unfortunately, I do know a lot of players in the space. Everyone likes, I know a lot of Airbnb, you know, people who use it, and basically people who rent out their places to it, and it's a little bit concerning for them. I mean, they have a lot of money invested in this space. Of course, then again, if this is their property investment that they strictly use for Airbnb, if they, it became less profitable, I guess they'll probably just have to sell their condos or flats or apartments, whatever.
Yeah. Or I
Yeah, I
mean,
guess
just
that's
turn it into a full-time rental and actually rent it to someone.
yeah, but the profit margin on an Airbnb place, some of these places rent out for like 300, 400 a day.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I know. Yeah,
That's insane. Well, definitely gonna, keep this in mind, and if I ever entertain the idea of Airbnb, I'm gonna definitely look up these legislations for sure.
yeah. You should.
I know real estate's getting less and less profitable. Well,
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit.
really? Wow.
Yes.
Nice.
So let's look at the week in review. Um, Last Monday, stocks were slightly down, as we talked about last week, and they continued to go down on Tuesday before rallying on Wednesday on the news that the Federal Reserve would not raise rates and will again debate whether to raise them in December, which is their next meeting. Thursday, it lost a bit of ground, and then Friday ended slightly lower as well. Now, looking at today's performance, um,
Yay.
it's the first day of the month, and we saw a big rally. The Dow Jones was up almost an entire percent, rising up over 165 points. S&P 500 rose up by almost 25 points, and the Nasdaq was up over 73 points.
Yay.
Yay! And let's take a look at what's in our portfolios. Last week, Walgreens Boots Alliance, or simply Walgreens, announced they would buy Rite Aid for $17.2 billion. It immediately went from $90 per share to about $94.
No, that's not that big of a
However,
jump. Yeah.
throughout the week since the announcement, they kept dropping. At one point, it dipped down to $83 before coming back up to 86, still low from the announcement.
Interesting.
I don't have it on this chart, but I'm pretty sure that Rite Aid's stock is still riding a high from the announcement. So
Well, I imagine if, they got acquired, maybe they aren't doing so well, so they got acquired. At the same time, it's kind of iffy because then for the companies losing money, their stockholders love these acquisitions because like, hey, my stock's now worth more than before. There's hope for my company to turn around. There's definitely, I don't even have to have worry about hope. There's a person who's really making way more money. They're profitable and they're acquiring a company for us. So basically they turn a losing situation to a positive beneficial situation. Sometimes the parent company, instead of paying cash, just offers stock in the parent stock, like parent company, instead of the basically the company being acquired, and they just exchange the stocks. Say, you know what, I'm Facebook. I'm gonna give you one stock for 100 of whatever Rite Aid stocks. And you sometimes you might take it, other times you might not. So
Well, as far as I understand, I mean, Rite Aid wasn't doing too bad recently. That is now, when Rite Aid, I'm basing some of this information off of what I heard from the Motley Fool podcast, Industry Focus. I was just listening to that before doing this. They were actually talking about how Rite Aid, when they bought out a chain called Eckerd or something like that. I can't
uh-huh.
even remember the name, but yeah, one of the issues was that a lot of the stores were concentrated in the same areas, so you had a lot of cannibalizing of businesses going on. So like basically the business, like the chain that bought them out and the chain that was bought out were both eating into each other's profits. So then there's a lot of store closures, a lot of people were getting laid off eventually, and then they started kind of turning things around. So Rite Aid actually wasn't doing too bad recently in these past couple of years. So some of the worries actually are that you might see a lot of that cannibalizing happening as well if none of the stores are going to be closed down. So a lot of people are actually predicting that there has to be stores that will close.
That makes sense. I mean, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Or just raising the prices on all the items that they have would kind of do the same thing. This is the example of a oligopolic or monopolistic competition, but more or less oligopolic condition. Well, actually, monopoly competition would be it. So monopoly competition is roughly when like monopolies kind of compete. Or well, actually, this would be oligarchy.
It
Well,
would be oligarchy because you still have
yeah.
CVS.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a situation, to rephrase to more simply, it's a situation where there's a handful of firms that control the market, and what Rite Aid, what it's Walgreens is doing is basically reducing the amount of competitors, and they're incurring the costs. And what happens is the market share now, instead of being split across four companies or how many companies it was before, into fewer companies, which means there's a competitor out there that just gained the benefit of getting additional market share for free. So then the question is, if they do close down these stores, that competitor gains even more market share for free. So, I mean, at the same time, yes, you might be competing amongst yourself, but you're also preventing those consumers from leaving your store to another competing store like CVS. It's the same. This is the same issue that we witnessed with AT&T acquisition of Singular. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the same condition, which is yeah, it's definitely interesting to look at and study. It's just kind of I could see why the parent company stock would be going down a bit, just because can be some question on whether or not this is a sound move and made in good judgment.
Yeah, one of the things that I was actually listening on to with the podcast just now was that the FTC, of course, they're going to have to approve this. And also looking at this Bloomberg article right here, it says that they've taken an aggressive stand against consolidation in the healthcare sector, particularly with hospital mergers. So I wonder if they're going to take the same stance with these sort of retail pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, actually, it probably will take the same stance, I imagine. I mean, I was very hopeful for the Staples and Office Depot acquisition, but at the same time, I thought in the back of my head that, you know what, it's kind of, you do not want a bunch of monopolies in the economy because it basically reduces competition. And when the competition between firms are reduced, the prices go up. Profit margin for companies go way up because they can charge more. They're the only supplier in the market. You can't get the product anywhere else. They're going to charge you as much as they can because they know that they're the only place you can pick it up from. And that's why there's an antitrust legislation to protect society and consumers from being gouged out the eyes by these profit maximization firms, which to their point is that that's essentially what they're supposed to do in the first place. So these legislations kind of you know offset the natural forces that play to try to benefit to optimize for the society instead of the companies. Um, yeah, but in this case, I think it's very possible that antitrust legislation will take effect. and prevent this from being a successful merger. And I think it's something we have to see. Although what's interesting is that Albertsons, a lot of stores were bought out by Hoggins, um, and pretty much Hoggins just went bankrupt or something, and now they're closing all the stores. So, and then to me, when I think about supermarkets like Albertsons, Rite Aid, Trader Joe, I mean, not Rite Aid, but like all these Ralphs and whatever churches, I kind of see them in the same light. Is that I don't know what's going on, but something is happening to our economy. There's a lot of shifting where these supermarkets and these places where you buy things are no longer the place you normally go to. I wonder if that's the effect of like Amazon or online purchases or like there's like some services where they'll just go and pick up products for you where, it's, like services are no longer as geocentric as they used to be. And perhaps this is what's causing all these stores to be acquired and whatnot. But if you look at the Rite Aid profits and revenue and income, they're not doing too bad. I mean, the profit margins are getting slimmer, but so far, it's definitely not like they're losing money. Definitely interesting. I mean, to me, until I have more concrete information, I probably wouldn't be participating in this stock, but I think I'd definitely keep an eye on it and just out of curiosity, see how they do.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's in my portfolio, so hey, I got no choice, but whatever.
You can always sell.
No, 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 no. I mean,
There's a
no,
few
no.
things you
It
can
actually works
do.
out in my favor to actually keep it, so I don't have to pay the transaction fees of selling it, but then keep it, and then as it goes down, I do a put option. But then of
There's
course
a
that means having to open up a
there's a few
options
things you
account.
actually do. I believe you can do something called option writing as well, and
Yeah,
perhaps
yeah,
that's a topic for another show.
yeah. All right. And speaking of investing strategies, when you make your money with investments, you're going to have to know where to stash it. One thing you don't want is to have Uncle Sam come in and skimp off your profits. So you have to know where are the legal loopholes to take your money and hedge against that. One such option are tax-deferred money market index funds. Note, these are not the same as money market savings accounts offered at your bank. The point is that hopefully these accounts will offer better yields than your savings account, plus the tax deferred status will keep the government at bay. Sadly, today's environment, interest rates throughout are still very low. And actually, that's the reason why I had to delay it because I was setting up the money market fund for myself, and then I had to set my current dividends to instead of going to my bank accounts to go into this account instead.
I see.
Yeah, actually, that the latter part was actually the slower part because the stupid transfer agent website is just ridiculously slow.
Really? That's surprising.
Yeah, and you couldn't even like if I wanted to just change the bank account information of like where I want it to be switched, I couldn't do it for all the accounts at one time. I had to go into every individual stock and then do it for each one.
That sounds wildly inefficient.
Yeah, oh yeah, trust me, it is. I'm actually very much tempted to just sell most of the stuff just because it's with this transfer agent, and then just I don't know, whatever.
Maybe I can create a tool for these consumers to use so that things can be sped up for a very, very low nominal fee.
Yeah, well, when you get that contract, let me know.
All right, work on that contract. We can split the money.
Hell yeah.
All right.
Okay, so um,
Money market indexes. Awesome. Yeah, I normally put my money into a Roth, but then in this case, maybe my non-Roth money can go into a money market index fund. Although, yeah, I need to find how it correlates with interest rates and whatnot before I make
the
that judgment. Although, I mean, I feel like the interest rate hike is looming, so it seems to be looming. It seems like we're just dying to pull the trigger, but just something's holding us back. It's not like we like gave up on pulling that trigger altogether. So if it's the case where interest climbs, then the valuation of the money market index fund goes up. Then great news,
yeah,
because that'd be good. Because then like if not, you're gonna have to hold stock for like a year to get like the 50% tax rate. Otherwise, it's gonna just be counted as part of your ordinary income. Tony
Yeah, the reason.
Robbins. Go on.
No, go. Okay, thank you. No, so I was gonna say the reason why or how I found out about this was reading this book right here, Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins. Now, here's the thing with this book is that it's really interesting in that he has a lot of interviews with a lot of financial industry experts, and he asks them, if you had one thing to pass on to your kids or anyone really, as far as investing strategies, what would it be? And so the value in this book is how the information that he gets from a lot of these industry experts, and this is one of the things that I got from him. But it because he's one of those motivational speakers, it's kind of hard for him not to kind of speak in that sort of fashion. So if you want to skip through all that, and if you just want to get the information of like, hey, what do I need to do? Step A, B, and C. There's actually another book. Um, Billy Graham? Crap. I don't think it is Billy Graham. No, it's not Billy Graham. What's his name?
Paul Graham?
No,
Benjamin Graham? The
Benjamin
Intelligent
Graham.
Investor?
Yeah,
The Warren Buffett recommended one book you must read, period.
yeah. He's actually Warren Buffett's mentor,
He made Warren Buffett,
pretty much.
and Warren Buffett made the world. Just kidding.
Uh, I can't find an actual copy of the book here.
No, it's Intelligent Investor, that red book you see. Scroll up a little bit. Second row. Yeah. Do you see it?
No. But this is
Uh,
supposedly by InstaRead. It's not like the actual book. It's just like a condensed version.
that book is so long and so thick.
It
It's
is actually a
intimidating.
long book. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the longest book and the most intimidating book I've had, but given this girthiness, it's definitely something that I haven't been able to find
Right. That's
enough
why
time
there's
to
this
sit down and read
InstaRead
through.
version for only $2.99, which takes only bits
Nice.
and pieces of
It's
it.
like the Cliff Notes
Pretty much. Yeah.
basically
No,
financial
actually, I mean
analysis.
that's why
Yeah,
for a book like this, as big as it is, I would much rather get the audiobook,
perhaps. I'm a
especially with
big
the
fan of
drive that you're
reading
going
in
for.
general, like visually, but you just haven't had the time. But I
Yeah.
think, if Warren Buffett's gonna say you have to read this book, then heck, why not? Why would you recommend this book this much, Buffett? I'm a big fan of Buffett. I'm not gonna lie about it.
Oh, no, I mean, yeah, but it's a really good book. But the book also, well, I was listening to the audiobook version, and he also mentioned the same exact thing. So, I
Really.
mean, hey,
Hey, read it. Read that book.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, Buffett did say some few things though. He said that, you know what, you don't need to be super smart to be like a successful investor, and you don't need to pick 1,000 winning stocks. He says, you know what, if you can pick 10 solid stocks in your life, like that's all you need to become super rich. So yeah, there's a clip out there floating around, but I watched it on an interview at some time. I forgot which one, but it kind of makes a lot of sense to me. It kind of like his style. Warren Buffett is like an investor with infinite timeline to make money, and in a way, it seems like he's always done that. So I find that quite fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. No, you know what? To get back into why I'm talking about using these money market index funds is that, um, like, say, if you have an emergency fund of some sort, what do you normally put it in?
I just put in highly liquid stocks.
That's not a good idea because that's not as liquid as you think.
3 days, huh?
Well, still, I mean, what if you're in a bind?
It has margin, so
Well,
and
it's
then
still that's still 3 days. But
it's no.
anyways,
Oh well, my setup is a little bit different. I trade through Merrill Lynch, and then basically, this is another reason why I'm such a big fan of Bank of America. And Bank of America did acquire countrywide financial investing for all the houses. They acquired Merrill Lynch for all the investments, and Bank of America is obviously Bank of America. I think one thing I did like about Bank of America is that they're the only bank and investment firm that you can transfer funds from your bank account to an investment firm and vice versa in real time. I just thought that was pretty cool. Because, when I had Scott Trade and whatnot, I had to wait days for the check to clear and I had to write a business check at I had the cashier's check, I'd bring it to the office, and I wait a few days for it to clear. After it cleared, then I can invest, but not the case with the Bank of America Merrill Lynch system. I mean, the interface is not the best, but then there's like a lot of perks. If you get a certain amount of free trade if you have like both a Bank of America account and then Merrill Lynch. But full disclosure, I do hold Bank of America stocks, so yeah. But that being said, is that what's not to like? I mean, they're the only bank that can really do this, and who
Okay, well, I mean,
knows?
you got a good point, but for most people, if they do have an emergency fund, I mean, well, most people don't have an emergency fund, but if they do, normally they just put it in their bank account and it kind of just sits there, right? But then, of course,
Makes sense.
there's inflation you got to worry about, yada, yada, yada. You're not
Of
really,
course.
you're kind of like just losing money just by leaving it in the bank.
Unless you're experiencing deflation.
Well,
There is a situation where by holding on to your money, you make more money. And
yeah,
that
the
case,
last time deflation happened was in 2008, and it wasn't even for the whole year. So,
well, I'm just saying, for example, right, there are a few cases, like, does it make sense to always have your money in the stock market? Possibly not. And the reason why is that some stocks go up, obviously, then hang on for a ride. But what happens when they dip? And if they do dip, like just not by not playing, by not being involved in the space, you pretty much make money. It's basically prevention of loss. And I think that's another thing for sure is that I think sometimes holding on to cash isn't shouldn't be frowned upon. Sometimes it's a wiser movement. In fact, a lot of financial investors I talked to is during the financial crisis actually recommended just selling everything and just waiting. Basically until everything blows over and then buy. But I basically didn't heed their advice and I bought these stocks when they're like, everyone's panicking. And of course I made money in the process. I basically bought at the bottom. Everyone wasn't quite sure where the bottom is, but I felt like there's certain stocks that just couldn't go any lower than that. And I believed in the company. I believed in the actions that the federal government is going to take for it, and that was a good choice at the time. But I think there's a time to buy, there's a time to sell, and there's a time to hold. So yeah.
yeah, but once again, back to the money market funds, because this is
Hmm.
part of the investing strategy. No, no, but no. The thing is that with these accounts is that like specifically, I'm taking advantage of the tax-free status that I'm getting, and not all money market savings accounts, or I mean, not all money market funds are like this. Only a set few specific ones. So you have to like go out there and see, what's out there. You have to look at the management fees and all that
Why
stuff
is it tax free?
because it's mainly putting money into uh, municipal bonds and things like that. Assets that are in it of themselves tax-free assets.
So if they're bonds, then you basically cannot lose value. Is that correct?
Right. It may not necessarily catch up with inflation. If you look at the rates right now, it's no better than your average savings account.
Ah, I see.
The difference is that at least with these, you're actually getting that tax deferred status.
Interesting. And basically they don't have really any risk of losing value?
Right.
Huh. Hey, that's good news. That is a good place to stash your money or your excessive cash.
Yeah. So at least for me, since what my dividends normally I'd have to pay taxes on that. So if I put my dividends into this, then it's all tax deferred. Now the only thing is that when I do try
Wait, tax
to
deferred or tax free?
tax deferred,
Ah, I see.
yeah. So like say if an emergency does happen, then um, checks that I write to myself from this account have to be at least $250, and then that's when I pay taxes on them.
I see. So you have to sell more than $250 if you need $250. You basically have $250 plus tax.
Mm, yeah,
Interesting.
but I mean, if you don't have an emergency, then you just let it sit there and let it grow, assuming that interest rates will come back up at some point.
Yeah. Well, I have mixed feelings regarding tax deferred stocks, so I had to withhold comment on this one.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's move on to actual recommendations. And in a rare instance, uh, I took this recommendation from you, so this will be your recommendation.
I
Um,
guess.
yeah.
I actually took
So,
this from someone else, actually. But he was way smarter, man. So, yeah.
so the question at hand is: should you buy stocks or buy a house as an investment? And let me just cut to the chase of the source of the video and the article here that we feature. Um, they say that the conclusions say that you should buy stock instead of a house.
Yep. There's a
Yeah,
chart, and there's basically two indexes, and they basically highlight the change in value of these indexes. One reflects the home price index, other one is a stock price index, and they will show that the stock price index has grown faster and, yeah, like basically faster than that of the housing prices. I mean, everything, everything you have to take with like a pinch of salt. It's, how do you know, like, because people see the gain, but they don't see the losses either. So it's kind of to each person's tolerance point. But if you're successful, and basically, for the most part, according to a Nobel Prize winning economist, is that if you just bought the index, the stock index, you would have made more money than most financial firm managers could have like managed for you. Like a lot of, he's like, you would have outperformed 95% of the money managers out there, or 98% of the money managers out there.
yeah.
So in a sense, yeah, perhaps it was, I had an option of actually getting a house or condo and start paying for the mortgage, or I could leave into stocks and live in my apartment still. And in a way, I elected to hold on to stocks instead of purchasing a condo or apartment like or house like everyone else. And I'm glad that they had this chart or report that showcased that, by holding stock, my money has made more money than I would have if I held like my housing, or if I bought a house. But at the same time, I think I had to do the numbers again and calculate, how much of what I saved in rent or not. But then again, I have a roommate which offset the cost. So I don't know. I guess to each person their own. But I'm glad there's a report out there that states one point or another. I would look forward to any type of counterpoints that another person might make against, the comparison of the stock price index and the housing price indexes.
Well, as we all know, things are a lot more nuanced than how they seem to be. So, situation is always going to be a lot more complicated. Let's say your housing price, may go up, but it may not be enough when you factor in inflation. Also, there are other costs associated with buying and selling a home, and altogether, you're going to pay the real estate agent either way when you buy and when you sell. On top of that, there's maintenance. There are other things that you have to pay for when you buy the home. There are property taxes you have to pay. But at the
Mhm.
same time, however, you do get tax cuts. So are the tax cuts worth you sinking all that money into a piece of property as opposed to buying stocks? That's a very good question. I can't say one way or the other.
Well, if it's your primary residence and you live in it for 2 years or more, when
But you
you
only have to
sell
do
that
that for one
house,
year.
oh, is it 1 year? Oh,
Yeah,
are you sure it's 1 year? I
1
swore
year.
it used to be 2 years. All right, then 1 year is
No,
pretty easy. But yeah, if you live in it for more than 1 year, then what? Really, 1 year? That's crazy. I mean, apartment leases are 1 year. But anyways, when you live in that residence for a certain period of time or greater, and when you sell it, you can sell it. I think at the profit you can sell for like tax-free profit up to a certain amount on the home.
no.
Yeah, the sale of primary residence after a certain period of time, you could sell it sell for like tax-free gain on the gains.
Like the entire profit?
To a certain point.
Okay,
So
so what's that magic number then?
I thought it was like, see here, 1 second. Let's take a look. Tax free. I'm doing the research right now. See, though, all right, I'm looking at Intuit TurboTax. It says though most home sale profits is now tax free, there are still steps you can take to maximize the tax benefit from selling your home.
Okay, so you can, according to the IRS, it says you can exclude up to 250,000.
There you go, $250,000 of gain. That's pretty good. And I think that's why people flip houses, really. But I'm not sure it was just 1 year though. I thought it was 2 years. But
I think it used to be 2 years, and then they switched to one. At least when I was getting ready to buy that condo, the agent told me 1 year.
well, look at this article. Does it say 1 year or two? Because I thought two. And 2 years is hefty. 1 year, heck, that's a sit. That's a measurement of time I don't even notice. It seems like every single time I blink my eye, I'm a year older. That's why I don't blink. Like Chuck Norris.
Yay. Well, in any case, what are some other advantages of buying a home? I don't know, man.
Um,
I mean,
you can do
it
whatever
all
you
depends
want
on
to.
where they agree, really. I think. I mean, like, say if you bought beachfront property in the 1970s, and then like, let's say you had to take out a loan for that, and then all of a sudden, bam, people were like, oh yeah, living on the beach, yeah, and then over the past 20, 30 years or so, then prices went up. Or like, say if you live in certain areas where there's a high ethnic Chinese population, and then all of a sudden the new mainland Chinese come in, and the new rich, come in, they start buying up property left and right, and then you're like, well, we're priced out of a market. So
That's true. Although, that thing is kind of offset with rent control. If you live in a place with rent control, you don't really have to worry about that too much. But in a place that doesn't have rent control, then it's definitely a legitimate concern. In those places, it does make sense to acquire a home and hold on to it. Unfortunately, home ownership's not without its own risks. Like, you have to buy homeowner insurance because there's gonna be a fire, there could be an earthquake, although earthquake's not covered. There's gonna be like your water tank can explode and then yeah, pretty much make your house on fire. There's electrical fires. There's a lot of things that can happen to your house. Termites. Um, yeah, those are things you're gonna have to deal with as a homeowner. But at the same time, I do like the idea that you don't have to pay to a landlord. You actually pay to yourself. Kind of you hold on to equity. What you do lose is interest. Like those home loans aren't free, and when you do the math on a $300,000 loan, it comes down to like a mere $1 million after like 30 years or so, I
yeah,
believe. That's just crazy. Well, I don't know. Someday, if I'm lucky enough, I'll own a home, a nice, big, luxurious home with a lot of space,
but
so I can have
I
my own
think that's the
place.
thing, though. I think a lot of people, like people in the higher classes, usually they're going to invest in things like stocks and all that stuff. For the middle class, low middle class, even their first investment exposure is going to be for houses. It's something that's solid. It's there. If you lose your job, at least you still have a place to live in, assuming it's paid off.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm slightly more migratory. I mean, if I lose my job, perhaps the city's tapped out, right? So
yeah,
I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna have to find a new city. And at that point, not owning a house is at your advantage because people assume that, oh, your house has value. Your house, like any other asset, doesn't truly have a value until you're able to sell it for that value.
yeah,
Like a
true.
stock might be, yeah, you might have bought the stock for $100, but until you could sell it for $200, it's still worth hopefully $100.
Now, here's another thing to consider, of course. If you look at the market today, only people with the highest credit ratings are getting into the market. This has some worried, and it's an indication that home ownership may actually be out of reach for most people.
That's great news for people who own homes and want to rent them out.
Yeah,
Take advantage of everyone else.
yeah, but it's funny because like the traditionally most people who are borrowing to buy homes, the credit scores were below 700, but now the average score for people that are purchasing homes and making these loans, their average score is 755. So
It's interesting, like the housing bubble and the financial crisis. I wonder if that had anything to do with it. Is that traditional before you wouldn't have loaned this much amount of money to people who haven't shown their ability to pay like credibly pay for this type of loan in the first place. And I
yeah,
wonder now if the requirements being so stringent, so like picky, like the banks being so picky is a reflection of recent legislations on preventing bad loans in the first place.
Yeah, but some people are actually wondering, is it too tight? But hey, that's all debatable.
That's true.
And that's it. That's it for today's episode. Thanks for listening. Any last words?
Yeah, always great to be here. I'm appreciative of everyone who listened. Feel free to leave comments. And yeah, we're gonna keep looking into things for ourselves, and in anything we learn in the process, we'll be more than likely happy to share with you. Uh, yeah, anything
All
you guys
right.
want to look into, let us know. We'll glance into it for you.
Cool beans. All right.